Wind and solar power are now cheaper in many parts of the US than coal, which is both a great development for our environment and also an opportunity for the US to be a leader in this industry. Unfortunately, here is what our leader had to say about wind power.
If Hillary got in, you wouldn't have that stat, I can tell you right now. You'd be doing windmills, and if it doesn't blow, you can forget about television for that night. Darling, I want to watch television. I'm sorry, the wind isn't blowing. I know a lot about wind.
I love how he ends. I know a lot about wind at the end because he knows a lot about everything. In fact, I'm going to show you, we're going to get back to how stupid that point was in a second. But first, I'm going to show you a clip that now this put together. It's a wonderful job of all the things that he knows about.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
I know more about drones than anybody.
Nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology certainly, than I do.
Nobody knows more about technology than me.
Nobody's in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B, I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. I understand things, I comprehend very well.
We're gonna have a link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook to the whole 2 minutes. It goes on and on and on. Great job by Now This on that. But they could add this to the lexicon. Just yesterday, he said, nobody's ever done anything more for Puerto Rico than me, ever, right?
He knows more about technology, just all of it. Like phone bevels and packaging for device, just everything.
Mark Zuckerberg? No, he doesn't know anywhere near what Donald Trump knows. All those computer coders in the Silicon Valley, they're calling Trump every once in a while. What do you think I should do with this line of code next? Okay, because he knows technology better than anybody.
Yeah, the idea that he knows more about all of these things than every other expert in the world is objectively crazier than that the leader of North Korea has never bowled less than a 300. This is crazier, but it's happening right now in our country, so we pretend it's normal.
Yeah, it's the cult of personality, and that's what all cults do. The dear leader is infallible. He knows more than everyone else combined on every single issue. And here we are with a bunch of people walking around in red hats in America going, oh, the leader knows. He knows more than everybody about me and everyone else. He's just the greatest there ever was. It's really quite pathetic, which brings us back to him knowing about wind. I mean, he does know about hot air, to be fair.
That's true.
Right? Maybe more than anyone.
You could power everybody's TV if you just put a turbine in front of his face.
Yeah, really close to his face. Really close.
So is that how it works, John?
No, that's not actually how it works. So there is a resource.
So John knows more about wind than the president?
I know a little bit about wind. So there's this website. It's run by the Department of Energy of the United States. That literally has a question. I think that this is for children, this website. It says, what happens to the electricity supply when the wind isn't blowing? Does wind need to be backed up by other sources of power generation? That second question is miles past where Trump will ever be on this. But what happens when the wind isn't blowing? Because I thought you just put the cord of your TV into the spinning turbine. No, they say, don't worry, the US power grid consists of a huge number of interconnected transmission lines that connect a variety of generation sources to loads. The wind does not always blow, and the sun doesn't always shine, which creates additional variability due to the changing output of wind and solar, and uncertainty due to the inability of perfectly forecast wind or solar output. But power grid operators have always had to deal with variability. Adding variable renewable power to the grid does not inherently change how this process of balancing electricity supply and demand works. Studies have shown that the grid can accommodate large penetrations of variable renewable power without sacrificing reliability and without the need for backup generation. They also compare the variability in these forms of energy generation with some that is experienced in more traditional fossil fuel dirty forms of energy, which also are not 100% reliable. That is the Department of Energy.
Would be great to check that next week. The same site, the same entry.
To see if it's gone and the person's been fired.
If they've edited it.
And by the way, when they do that, and the Trump administration obviously has done that a couple of times, and that's why Michael's mentioning it. What they're doing is literal political correctness. The current Department of Energy website is factually correct, but since it offends the ignorance of our president, it might be changed like the EPA website was, and several other websites were, to become politically correct rather than factually correct.
Yeah. Also, just before I forget, I do want to point out, so Donald Trump has basically said that exact same thing many times now. Dear, I want to watch TV, but the wind isn't blowing. He says those exact words over and over and over. There are many things that are powered by electricity, but I do think it's noteworthy that when he talks about it, the example is always television that he's being blocked from using. That's the nightmare that he goes back to time after time, which is not random.
You know what? He might think that Jeanine Pirro was taken off by the wind.
Okay, she's not blowing anymore. Yeah.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.